Welcome. You may be seated. I want to wish you a good morning. Good morning. And a happy 4th anniversary. It's kind of happy 4th anniversary because really officially it's the first Sunday of October. But we had some things going on. So I think this is this the last Sunday of October? I think so. Yeah. Right. Welcome back. So we have that, but instead of wishing you that this morning, I also wanted to wish you a happy, belated homecoming, because we do have some student-aged people. I know, it was several weeks ago, but I kind of did this because I wanted to mention something. How my daughter's school celebrated homecoming. They did this. Lots of gatherings, lots of things. I don't know what your high school or colleges do for homecoming, but they had lots of celebrations outdoors on their campus. But in order to further entertain the students and the parents, instead of just documenting all of the happenings and posting them online, they also made all of their social media a particular activity. Because not only are these pictures records of homecoming and everything that they did, they sent a person into every one of these photos dressed like this. Yes, like Waldo, right? And so, once you do that, it's irresistible. It's irresistible. You cannot not look for Waldo. You can distract yourself. You can tell yourself, I'm looking somewhere else. Oh, I'm looking at the nice celebration. No, you're looking for Waldo. There's just no way to get away from it. There's no avoiding. Well, I know. You're going to ignore me for the rest of this morning because you're going to be looking for Waldo. Where is that thing? And, because somewhere in the nature of humanity, this is just who we are. We're searchers. We like looking for stuff. We're completers. We need to fill in the blank. Find the hidden FedEx arrow when someone tells you, there's an arrow in there. Yes, there's an arrow. Okay. And you need to know where the hidden puzzle piece is. And so I'm gonna just stop you right here because I'll let you know where he is. In our daily experience, we're like this. And when we're not rushing around and getting things done, going from point A to point B, when we have our wits about us and the presence of mind, this is who we are. We step back and we start thinking about the blank places in our life, the blank spots. We think, why is life turning out the way that life is turning out? What motivates that person and that person to treat me the way that they do? And then you start feeling, did I do something to them at this point in time? Could they be misinterpreting or interpreting this or that? And on the grandest scale, as believers in Jesus, where is God? And what is he doing in my life right now? Where do I find the activity of this most important Father working invisibly behind the scenes in every moment that I'm living? Where do I look for that? Do I see it? And this morning, as we return to our study in the book of Ruth, the author of the book of Ruth relates a very brief snapshot. That's our passage this morning. It's a very brief snapshot. And it kind of forwards the basic facts about the progression of the narrative. But behind it, they're showing us precisely where God is showing up. Not visibly, but how God works in circumstances, and even our circumstances, to show us his presence and his wisdom, his power and his guidance, and how he walks right beside us and is as real as the person sitting next to you. So if you've got your Bibles, turn with us to our passage this morning. It's Ruth chapter 2, verses 17 through 23. Ruth 2, 17 through 23. And if you do not have a Bible or Bible app, as we mention every morning, you can open your bulletin and we print the passage there for you to follow along with. So this again is the author of the book of Ruth, and they're writing to us about this constant progression of this story. And they say this. So she, get our minds back on, this is Ruth. So Ruth gleaned in the field until evening. Then she beat out what she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. She took it up and went into the city, and her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned. She also took it out and gave Naomi what she had left after she was satisfied. Her mother-in-law then said to her, "Where did you glean today, and where did you work? May he who took notice of you be blessed." So she told her mother-in-law with whom she had worked, and said, "The name of the man with whom I worked today is Boaz." Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, "May he be blessed of the Lord, who has not withdrawn his kindness to the living and to the dead." Again, Naomi said to her, "The man is our relative. He is one of our closest relatives." Then Ruth the Moabitess said, "Furthermore, he said to me, 'You should stay close to my servants until they have finished all my harvest.'" Naomi said to Ruth, her daughter-in-law, "It's good, my daughter, that you go out with his maids, so that others do not fall upon you in another field." So she stayed close by the maids of Boaz in order to glean until the end of barley harvest and the wheat harvest. And she lived with her mother-in-law. Pretty simple, straightforward events. Again, before we dive in, we always go into our context so that we kind of like, oh, where were we? Where are we going now? Where do we fall in the context? And we want to provide this context, catching ourselves up, and we'll just do it very quickly. Here we are. Number one is this. We always repeat this. We don't know who wrote the book of Ruth, right? They don't announce themselves. But number two, we do know that the audience of the book of Hebrews is the book of Ruth is Hebrew, right? All these references to Jewish culture and theology and history. But most importantly, number three, the main theme of the book is redemption. That God is taking a terrible situation, and through his power and his love and his grace towards us, he redeems that situation, turns it around, flips what seems a cursed situation into a blessed situation. And every week, we also repeat the plot of the book, our square Rudy plot, right? Chapter 1, dedicated to tragedy. That is all of chapter 1. It's like, oh, this is terrible, the downward trajectory. And the tragedy is, of course, that this Jewish family, they journey to the neighboring nation of pagan Moab because of a famine. And in the first 5 verses, bing, bang, boom, the family experiences tremendous loss. Not only does the patriarch of the family, Elimelech, die, but the 2 sons, after they marry Moabite women, they pass away as well. This leaves 3 widows. The original Hebrew matriarch of the family, Naomi, and then the 2 Moabite daughters-in-law, Orpah and Ruth. And we now know why the book is named after Ruth. Because as Naomi returns to Israel 10 years later, there's no more famine, she urges Ruth, you stay behind. Orpah, you stay behind. Go start a new life back in your native Moab. But Ruth does not. She sacrificially and lovingly and courageously dedicates herself to sticking with her mother-in-law, Naomi. She's returning with her to Israel, giving up all hope for the future, going to a foreign land where likely she's going to be looked down upon and endure all kinds of hardship. Chapter 1. That's in a nutshell. But then, chapter 2 through 4 document how God then provides for these 2 widows, Naomi and Ruth, turning the whole chapter 1 terribleness into a new, restored, hope-filled life against all odds. That's the whole thing. That's the whole plot and redemptive arc. And it's the same plot as everything. It's the same plot of the whole Old Testament. Redemption. God is turning tragedy and terribleness into triumph. God moving, he's guiding, he's blessing, so that the nation of Israel enters into the land flowing with milk and honey, the promised land. But what? That's after terrible slavery, trudging in the wilderness for 40 years. Job, his many, many afflictions. Everything is taken away from Job. His health, his family, his riches, everything. But at the very end, he's restored. Daniel, going into the lion's den. But then at the very end, who gets the just desserts? Everybody who plots against him. David answering the taunts of Goliath. Deliverance of all the firstborn, but through the blood and sacrifice of the Lamb. God taking difficult and violent and tragic events, and he shows grace and generosity and hope and newness through the tragedy. Redemption. What's unique about Ruth, though, her account, is God, well, I hesitate to say this. God doesn't show up. Well, God, he does, but there's no burning bush. There's no Ark of the Covenant whereby Naomi and Ruth can enter and speak to God face to face, or at least see his glory. There's no whirlwind from which God speaks as if to Job. There's no Mount Zion where the divine finger starts to etch the law of God into tablets for you right in front of your face. There's the book of Ruth. We say that God provides redemption, but nowhere does God, come down the staircase and say, "Hey, here I am," and show his precise intervention. Instead, every circumstance, every plot twist, and every redemptive beat of this book happens because of God's invisible hand. Happens very much like in our own lives. His implied provision and his implied wisdom and his implied timing. And that's the point of today's passage. Last week, we learned, hey, what turns everything around in this whole story? Our little bottom comes back up point. Well, of course, it's the loving kindness, the loyalty of Ruth. But this week, we're directed to see the unmistakable work of God, stepping into the events, yes, silently, and yes, invisibly, but unmistakably. God is there. And every beat, every turn of events is, if you look for God being there, he's certainly there. So, this is why we're going to title our overview of these verses, Look at the Redemptive Moments. If you look at the redemptive moments throughout the book of Ruth, that's where you're going to see God. That's where he's going to show up. Now, if we want to see how he works and where he's working, all we need to do is say, hey, how does everything flip around in this book? How do they go from here to up here? Oh, that's where God is. From terrible to terrific, redemptive moments. And that flip starts in our verses this morning. You remember, for the last few weeks, Ruth and Naomi have just entered the town of Bethlehem. They're kind of dragging themselves in. And Naomi's made this big lament publicly to everybody. Right? The Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me. Oh, yeah. I went out full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. We agreed. This was the lowest of the low points for Naomi. And we'd probably be right there with her if those kind of circumstances happened to us as well. Oh, we'd feel just like that. And Naomi's bitterness, she zeroes in to the source of her bitterness. The Lord has brought me back empty. I have nothing. I am wiped out, and there is no provision for me. And if we look at the whole book, that emptiness revolves around two resources in particular. The most basic resources that we have in life. Number one, food. Like, most basic resource. You don't have food, after a couple of days, you are no longer. And number two, family. The most basic relational resource in our lives, being connected with someone in your family. And it starts, these two themes, these are the themes around which the whole book revolves around these two themes, food and family. And it starts as soon as the very first verse of the book of Ruth. Ruth 1:1. Right? What's that? And there came about in the days when the judges governed that there was a famine in the land. No food. Immediately, the bad situation. Lack. Then by verse 5, then both Mahlon and Chilion also died, and the woman was bereft of her 2 children and her husband. It's where Naomi loses family. So between verse 1 and verse 5, everything. 2 sons, her husband. So the tragedy, Ruth's emptiness, is based on these two resources. Her family's been wiped out. And really, If she probably thinks about it, my family was wiped out on account of the fact that there was a lack of food and then we had to go somewhere. Who knows? Maybe it wouldn't have happened if we didn't have to travel to Moab. And even now, at this point in the book, as they're re-entering Bethlehem, she's still mourning her familial loss, yes. And even though the famine's over, that's why we're coming back to Israel, Naomi personally still struggling as a widow with no access to her estate, no access to resources, and so she still is without food. But what happens in our verses this morning? Everything turns around right here. Naomi, empty with food, empty with family at the beginning of our verses 17 through 23. At the end, no longer. It's all flipped. Verse 17 kicks us off. So she, this is Ruth, gleaned in the field until evening. Then she beat out what she had gleaned, and it was an ephah of barley. And then, as if to make sure that we know where the part of this barley goes, the author makes it a point in verse 20 to say she also took it out and gave Naomi what she had left after she was satisfied. Food. Got food. Flip number 1. The food disaster, the curse of chapter 1 is over here. And then immediately Naomi asks, oh, where does this barley come from? Where did you glean today? Where did you work? And this is where the second flip happens in verse 19. The name of the man with whom I worked today is Boaz. Who's Boaz? Naomi knows who Boaz is. Ruth didn't know who Boaz was, but Naomi does. The man is our relative. He is one of our closest relatives. Flip number 2. The family curse. Just like that. It was hinted way back in chapter 2, verse 1, but now it's no burning bush. There's no visitation from angels. There's no parting of seas. But as Naomi sees how she's gone from empty to provided for, from foodless and familyless to suddenly, I have, how does she respond? Well, the New American Standard chooses to translate it like this, right? May he be blessed of the Lord, who has not withdrawn his kindness to the living and the dead. So we got to kind of interpret that because there's too many keys there, right? Boaz is blessed. Boaz is blessed. But Boaz is to be blessed because God himself has not withdrawn his kindness to the living and the dead. God has not withdrawn his kindness to the living and the dead. Naomi acknowledges, I see it. That's the hand of God. I see God working. She cannot deny. Just a little bit while ago, she was like, oh, God's cursed me. He's taken and now she says, he has not forgotten me. He sees me. 2 deficits in one day. The 2 worries of her life. Just like that. And she's finding redemption. This is where Naomi spots the work of God. In the redemptive work that she sees in her life. That's happening right in front of her. But there are 2 more lenses through which we can see God show up in our lives. In our opening verses, the author is also directing us to look at the abundant moments. So look at all the redemption in your life. Look at the abundance, the blessings that God blesses you with. That sometimes the flood of abundance that God brings into your life, oh, only God could do that. We see this in how God provides for Israel in the wilderness. Literally, food is falling from the sky. And not just, oh, you got your proteins, birds are falling from the sky, and you got your carbs, this like sweet manna is falling, and it's abundant. Jesus producing loaves and fish for thousands of people, just the miracles happening in his very hands as he's handing it out. And then there's baskets upon baskets full left over, all the way to the New Testament. Where, well, this New Testament truth that God provides for us every spiritual blessing in the heavenly places in Christ Jesus. Abundance comes and just slaps us in the face at times, and when it is, it's to wake us up to the fact that God is there and God is working in your life. And the moment of abundance in our passage this morning, verse 17. Now, you may miss that, but Ruth gleaned in the field until evening. She beat out what she had gleaned, so she's separating the barley from the chaff, right? All the stuff that does. And It was about an ephah of barley. An ephah of barley. Yeah, I'm going. An ephah. Oh, sorry. That was for emphasis. An ephah of barley. How much is an ephah? 30 to 35 pounds. Sorry, this is 40 pounds, but I didn't want to break it up and have rice all over the floor, right? Picture this. Ruth is cleaning all day. This is very hard for me to do right now. She's picking up individual grains of barley, right? She's picking up, barley looks just like wheat. You've seen the wheat, right? And then when you beat it out, the little wheat is like a grain of rice. It's like a grain of rice. She's picking this up off of the ground. One stalk at a time. All day. Maybe you could have hope for, I get to the end of the day, I got a pound, maybe a couple of pounds of wheat. After one day, Ruth comes home with 35 pounds of barley. Literally, probably all that she can possibly carry from the fields back to the town where she is. So, okay, we don't get a burning bush. No, there's no pillar of fire. There's no whirlwind from which God is speaking. God's showing up. God's showing up unmistakably through his clear, impossible abundance of blessing. Just to let you know, we are a Chinese family. I had to tell you that. It takes us 3.5 weeks with a teenager in the household to go through 20 pounds of rice. It's just, you got 35 pounds of barley. You got 2 people. They're set for months. And, trade, right? We're seeing God through his redemptive moments, how he flips the script of our lives. Abundance. And he provides way beyond our capacity. And finally, the author is directing us to look at the impossible moments. We got the redemptive moments, the abundant moments, and the impossible things. I cannot explain that. When the plan comes together, and it wasn't your plan, and it wasn't anybody else's plan, and I don't know whose plan this, but we can see that God orchestrates that person in that moment, and this timing and that circumstance to all come together in an impossible harmony of happenings. So that his redemptive and abundant blessings just rain down upon us. That moment in this book, well, we get to see it early on in chapter 2, when Boaz is first introduced, right? That's where Boaz introduced, right? Now Naomi had a kinsman of her husband, a man of great wealth, of the family of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. We get to see that. Naomi's not seeing that at that point in time at the beginning of chapter 2. That was the setup for this. That Boaz was a person, he's there, but that setup has no payoff until today, our passage today. Because now Ruth returns to Naomi. And it isn't until right now in our passage this morning that we realize, this is happening. And Ruth didn't just happen to glean in the field of Boaz. Boaz didn't just happen to be in his fields at just that day and that moment in order to see Ruth and happen to notice her, and that she's not one of my employees, and that the reapers that Boaz asks about Ruth don't just happen to know about who she is. No, none of that, none of those random happenings were random happenings at all. These are all moments that would never have happened and may never have happened and easily might not have happened, but did happen. Because God is putting this impossible moment together. Where Naomi, in our passage, can now say, you just gleaned in the fields of, and you spoke to, and you were invited to lunch by, and treated extra special by golly, one of the very few people who can help our family, period, who happens to be one of our closest relatives, who can turn around the whole tragedy of the continuation of our family line, and the reinstatement of our estate, and everything coming together. That's the dude right here. If we read this, There's no other conclusion to be made. God is making himself known by intervening and showing his ability to control, to time, to mastermind, to execute his plan. He's steering people, steering circumstances, steering everything. So, can we see God in the book of Ruth? You don't have to squint to see him. No angels, no water being turned into wine. Absolutely, God is there. Can we see God in our own lives? And the ways that our lives have unfolded? Absolutely. And there's no Where's Waldo hunt. You have to go, it's very hard to see where he is. How do we apply? How do we apply this passage of Ruth? The blessings that come to her and walk into the life of Naomi. Well, first, simply, this always be looking for Jesus, always be seeking Jesus. As New Testament believers, Jesus is God with us. He's revealing himself. He's abiding with us. He never leaves us or forsakes us. And so, just like Naomi was discovering that God was showing up in all the circumstances that she's seeing right now, his provision, his perfect timing, we are to be looking for and recognizing that Jesus, well, there he is, and there he is, and he's in my life here, and he's providing for me, and he's loving me here and there. But our antenna have to be up and be aware and seeking Jesus. And where is he? What is he doing? And we're all seekers. Every single one of us is a seeker here. Some of us we got our antenna up for other things, right? Maybe you're a deal seeker. Right? You're the person that everybody goes to for the coupon, and you're the one who knows when it expires, because you are the deal seeker. How to get the bargain. Some of us are humor seekers. You're out there, you're looking for the next joke. And not only do you look for the next joke, you memorize that joke and you tell it to the rest of the congregation at some point in time. We have seekers of recipes that you seek the next delicious thing to make for the next person. And you're like, that looks really good. And you see it online. I'm going to make that next time for my family or the next people who come over. Or you're a seeker of crafts, instruments, trivia, financial advice, words to encourage. Sometimes there are people who seek words to discourage. And they collect those, and we collect those things so that we can then spread them to other people. Whoever we are, we have everybody's got a special set of antennae. Everybody's got a special set of antennae, and you know mine. If you've hung around me for any number of, any period of time, and this is kind of meta, really, you probably heard me, though, utter this phrase if you've been around me. Oh, there's a sermon illustration there somewhere. You've heard me say that. Whatever I'm doing, I'm wandering around and I'm vacuuming, and the power cable's not long enough, the vacuum goes off. Oh, there's a sermon illustration in there somewhere. Daughter crashes the car, and the first person on site, I mutter to myself, there's a sermon illustration there somewhere. Putting up the Christmas decorations, and I knock out, like 14 years ago, knock out my 2 front teeth. And my mouth is filled with blood and shards of tooth. And my first thing is I get down off the ladder, I go inside, and I go to my wife who looks at me, and everything's bloody, and I'm mumbling because I can't talk. My first thing that I'm thinking is, yes, dental emergency, I need to get to a dentist right now. Second thing, though, is there's a sermon illustration here somewhere. It's going to come out someday. When I wake up early and I can't go back to sleep, I'm thinking about sermon illustrations. When I'm driving and I have the music off, when I have the music on, I'm singing. When I got the music off, I'm thinking of sermon illustrations. Okay, we all got a thing. You got a thing, I'm talking about this right now, and you're thinking, oh, I know what my thing is. I got a thing too. Maybe it's, how do I get my to-do list done today? Or, where do I eat next? Or resources for my children, or resources for my parents, or my grandchildren. We are all seekers. We got our antenna up for something. Seek Jesus. How is he working in your life? Draw near to him, he'll draw near to you. Make finding him and his interaction with you the thing. What is that thing? The it that you're always looking for. The Waldo in your life. Actually, later during our a little luncheon, share, oh, this is what I've seen Jesus been doing in my life during this period that I've been at. That's all. That's all we're doing. We're seeking and looking for the love and provision that God has provided for us. We're asking, wherever I recognize Jesus showing up. Application number one. Very easy. Very easy. Be always seeking him. And we're going to find Jesus. We're going to find Jesus, his work in our lives. Number two, always be remembering the cross. Always be remembering the cross. That in our daily life, as we seek Jesus and his work, there is a lens through which we look. And that is what Christ has already done for us. That what Jesus is doing in our lives has an anchor. So if we look through this lens, we'll see him more clearly. And obviously that is the cross. I share with you, I think I've shared with most of you, that I have an uncle. And I share with you because he has a very unique name, which also matches his profession. And so if I'm going to say this, you're like, oh yeah, I remember Byron sharing that with me. My uncle is a scientist. He's got a PhD in his chosen field of science. He's a biochemist. But his actual name is Atom. You remember that? A-T-O-M. That's my uncle's name, Uncle Adam. Now, that was not weird to me as I was growing up. I thought everybody had someone in their life named Adam because we pronounce it like A-D-A-M. But it's really A-T-O-M, and that's super crazy weird, right? Yeah, weird grandparents. So I didn't think very much of it. So when I think of my uncle, and I think of, well, what really stands out to me about him, it's not his name. It's this. This 1976 Toyota Corolla, white, hatchback. It's my very first car. It had 440 AC, you know that, right? 4 windows at 40 miles per hour. And as the song goes, it went 0 to 60, sometimes. But this was my Uncle Adam's car. And when I went off to college, I had no transportation. I had no way to get to work. I had no way to get to church. I had no way to get to the grocery store. Uncle Adam gave me his car. He gave me his car. And great, he's fantastic. He's actually my only uncle, right? All the other uncles are married into their in-law uncles. So I have 2 aunts, one on my dad's side, one on my mom's side, and only one uncle. And always like, what do you call, role model for me. Always looked up to my uncle. But I would say, shaped me in a lot of different ways, but when I think about him, I think of 1976 Toyota Corolla. Yeah. Seriously, that was the big gift that defines, it was this expression of generosity to me. It was an expression of how he cared for me as a nephew. And, well, he didn't give a car to either my brother or my sister. Anyway, so I just share all kinds of my dysfunction with you. But that's what I think when I think of it, right? Naomi, what's her watershed moment? No food, no family, no hope for resources until our passage today. It's that moment of turnaround where she's going to reflect on that moment when, whoa, now I got food. Oh, there's a relative that's like really directly involved now with our lives. This is that moment. Suddenly, her daughter-in-law has been clearly supernaturally connected with a relative that can provide a way forward, and she's got food on right in front, like not a little small amount of food either. And Ruth is not just happens to be in the field of this person. She's met him, she's talked to him, she's ate with him, she's related with him, all within one day. And she's come home and reported this. This is the moment. This is the moment that Naomi's going to look back upon and say, this is upon which all the other blessings build. This is the moment where I can say, I used to be empty until that day, and I'm not empty anymore. We have that moment in the death and the resurrection of our Savior Jesus. That's the memory that defines the abundance in our lives. The redemption, and the impossibly perfect sacrifice of God so loving the world that he gives his only begotten Son, providing to us Christ, taking away the barrier of sin, giving to us forgiveness, the blessing of new life. The cross is where God is revealed, where we're loved, where we're served, where God is holy and providing and showing us his wisdom and his goodness and his wrath and his all-seeingness and his all-controlling and all-powerfulness and everything he is and everything he is to us daily is in that moment of the cross. So as we seek Jesus and we seek him in our daily lives, evidence all around us. We don't have to squint to see all that God is doing. But we do need to put the special lens of the cross on and see what Jesus does in our lives today. All of his affection, all of his provision, all of his wisdom, and all of the planning is a function of what Jesus has already done by bringing us close to him. He's loved us already. He's saved us already. He's provided for us so that we see him every day.